So, I wanted to start our conversation today just with some basic background for those of us who may not be as familiar with the region. This brought up warm memories for me of having been in 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗁, Amdo, many names. And particularly the community of Rebgong on which the book is centered. But for those of us who are maybe less familiar, talk to us a little bit about the situation in the region. What is the Manegacha language? Who is speaking it? What is its relationship to other languages in the region? And how does this all sort of interact with the Chinese state's system of ethnic classification?
Sure. Thanks for those questions to get the ball rolling. So I guess I'll just start out by pointing out that throughout the book, when I'm talking about Tibet, I'm not referring only to the Tibet autonomous region. I'm talking about the broader Tibetan cultural region, which is now split up into several provinces in China. So it includes parts of Qinghai, Gansu, Sichuan, and Yunnan provinces. And the site where I did most of the research for this book is in Qinghai province, which Tibetans refer to as the region of Amdo. So I worked with the Manegacha speaking community, which is in the around the town of Rongo in the region called Rebgong on the northeast Tibetan Plateau in Qinghai province. So Manegacha is a language it's basically descended from an old form of Mongolian. The Manegacha speakers have been living there on the northeast Tibetan plateau for several centuries now, about 800 years they've been living there. Their language has been heavily influenced by Tibetan. Indeed, the name of the language, Manegacha, it means our language, and the gacha part is from the local Tibetan language, right? So even in the name of the language, it has some element of Tibetan in it. Um, so Manegacha is one of the languages that is spoken in Rebgong. Tibetan, the local variety of Amdo Tibetan, is the dominant language in the region. Most of the surrounding villages use that language, but there is also another minority language spoken in Rebgong, which is called 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗁. 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗁 is a kind of a Sinitic language. It's closer to other forms of Chinese than it is to other forms of Tibetan or Mongolian, for example. So you have this valley, basically. Rebgong is a valley full of villages and a growing urban center, large population of Tibetan speakers, and then a few villages scattered along the side of the valley that speak Manegacha and 𝗘𝗃𝗃𝗁. And this is kind of representative to some extent of the diversity that exists across Tibet. I think a lot of people come to thinking about Tibetan languages in Tibet with the assumption that all Tibetans speak Tibetan. This is unfortunately, yeah, this is misinformation. Tibet is a very linguistically diverse part of the world. The patterns of linguistic diversity that we see in Tibet sort of follow patterns of linguistic diversity that we see elsewhere in the world, where mountainous regions tend to be more diverse than sort of flat, plainy areas in terms of the number of languages that they have. So you mentioned that number, 60 minority languages. So when we talk about the minority languages in Tibet, that includes languages that are spoken by non-Tibetan ethnic groups that live inside Tibet. So these might be Mongolians, Naxi, Menba, Hlorpa, like minority ethnic groups. And then there are also linguistic minority groups who are basically Tibetan, but the language that they speak is not Tibetan. So there's roughly about 30 of those linguistic minority groups amongst Tibetans. And yeah, the research that I did focused on those Manegacha speakers in particular.